Hey guys, it's Pandan, and this is Order of the Crimson Arm, and I'm cheating. I destroyed all the enemies on the map, except for these two, because I didn't feel like dealing with them, because of how they're loaded in. So, enemies are loaded in a specific order, and usually my trick is to just delete everything up until like the unit I want to keep. And these two were above Yormund on the list, and Rodolfo loaded in separately, so I just let him hang out. And I moved Yormund all the way down here, so I can pin him and proceed to beat the romhack. I left him exactly as is, to simulate what a real fight with Yormund would be like. But I got rid of all the annoying stuff. Because you know what? Yormund's a warrior. He would want to just do it 1v1. 1v1 me, bro. So that's how I'm looking at this. I don't care that I'm cheating. I'm only modestly ashamed. I figured this was better than just rage quitting the romhack. I like this theme too. Yeah, but like, guys, the bulk is really, really egregious. You don't need this much bulk. Alright, now let's see. I'm curious how Bolslav does. Yo, here we go. This, you know what this reminds me of, guys? It reminds me of Ashnard. Just like how crazy that was. How do you do? He's even got crit on you, man. Alright. Dude, we're gonna have Bolslav with his support partners do most of the heavy lifting here. Yeah, like, I think, given how beefy Yormund is, I think it would have made more sense for the hack to have, like, a specific chapter where you fight him. Like a 1v1, kind of like how you fight Idun in FE6 or the dragon in FE7. Like, no distractions, just Yormund. Yormund on top of all of this other crap is too much. But I really like the idea of it being a beachy battle. Battling on the beach. Can we dodge this? Yes, the uppercut, dude. Guys, I have no shame. How badly do you get doubled? You get very doubled. Yeah, I'm down to try this. You truly are quite the specimen, aren't you? Ah, I can see you certainly are a threat. It has been quite a long time since a man has made my hair stand on my end. I assure you that the feeling is quite mutual. The thrill is exactly what I was searching for. Now prepare yourself for the thrill of a lifetime. You shall soon know why I'm known as the Falcon. I am Adin, the Falcon. Wow. Has anyone called him the Falcon once throughout the entire Hackrom? Guys, this is so much more pleasant. I'm glad I cheated. I don't even care if I cheated myself here. Also, the fact that he just kind of like very casually throws out fire breath is really silly, but I also enjoy it quite immensely. Alright, let's Bolslav. And alright, let's see what's he gonna do. Your fighting style tells me you're driven more by a will to survive than by loyalty. Join me and I can temper your body to its full potential, even if I was considering that offer. Ostrich seems like the safer bet. The dog-eat-dog mentality you folks seem to all be about just gives me the shivers. So you fool continue to cling to your cowardice, is it? That'll be your undoing. So those comma or apostrophe errors, I'm pretty sure they're caused by copy pasting. Because I've run into this as well, where like sometimes the formatting gets messed up when you copy paste into the ROM. I do think it's kind of strange that every character in this hack has a boss quote with Yormund, but yet there's so much other like dialogue that feels unfinished. But it's fine. All right, Al. Okay, and no one more appropriate to end it than Mr. Bolslav. Wonder. To think I have lost. Wonderful. Yep. This world is truly amazing. I congratulate you on your victory. I can see the endless possibilities before. Hang on a minute. The boss dropped his axe. He's never done that before, right? No, I ain't never seen or heard about it happening. He lost. Yormund lost. Hold on. None of us could beat the boss. So that means, how are we gonna beat them? We ain't leg it. The enemy is breaking. Now's our chance, everyone. Withdraw. Hurry, my friends. We must escape from this place quickly, lest our shirtless friends remember they outnumber us. That's nice and all, but where's our ride out of here? We have ships waiting in a small hamlet. It is a half day's away, so haste is still a must. Indeed, then let us double our pace. I can already see some of them turning around. What are you doing? You have them surrounded. Kill them with your numbers. You can't just let them walk after this. Bowie, there ain't any help in it, David. Then turn us around. Pull the ship ashore and we'll crush them ourselves. Not a chance, whelp. Boss's orders were to sell Silencia, and that's where we're going. But if we leave, fight it out to see who's next. But remember what you have in your arms, Bowie. So we just have to grin and bear it. Afraid so, kid. Keep this in mind, too. They might have got lucky here, but there ain't anything around that can stop the tide from coming from the old lands. From now on, those shores belong to us. He might have died, but he brought us victory. And I suppose it's up to us to see his will through. And make sure this child survives to take up his legacy. Dude, the sequel? Yormund Jr.? And for the children yet to come as well. Did I like the Braxians? We did it! So... I'm sorry I had to cheat. But... if you saw the last map and like you saw what that was going to be like, it just would have been really miserable to try and like get everything to play it perfectly. And I don't have that kind of time. And I don't have that kind of willpower, more importantly. So, let's get right on. Oh, we're going to just go right to the epilogue. I hit the wrong button. 6 months later. Yeah, we'll just play this out. Ernst! Sitting out in the boss's big day? Shame on you, Tactics. You have quite the nerve to say that, especially seeing as I arrived here first. Ernst and Tact, man, what a bromance. It's called being fashionably late. Maybe if you had any sense of style, you would understand, Ernst! Is that so? Yes, it is so. Still, with all the reconstruction going on, I'm amazed they even found the place. True, and I'm sure the guards mistook you for a Braxton with your looks, and held you up as well. Hey now, I'm way more handsome. Besides, any of the violent ones are stuck to the coastline. Good as it is that they are held at bay, any attempts at forcing them away have been fruitless. Yeah. Though Queenie letting in the nice ones seems to be work. There you two are. Whoa, he grew out a beard. I thought you two weren't going to make it at all. Check out my epic beard. You thought I would miss? My boy's big ceremony? Perish the thought. Insulting to think that you would believe that. Hey, now cut me some slack. I've been busy with everything going on. You guys might have been put to work, but I've also had my hands full with peasants and nobles alike. I would feel sorry for you if this wasn't exactly what you were asking for all this time. How was I supposed to know? What a trio. Ha ha ha, that certainly takes me back to when you first told me about your goals. Ah, so you really are both leaving. Yep, much as I'd like to stay, the life of a prim proper knight isn't suited for me. With the kingdom sprouting up in Braxian territory, I'm sure work will be interesting to find, not to mention Ravinia. Their king died, right? Some magistrate's in charge now and the queen got Queenie spooked? Yeah. The old king's heir isn't old enough to rule, apparently. We're unsure if this magister is gonna hold our alliance. Either way, their kingdom is in chaos right now. Yeesh, certainly got your work cut out for you, don't you? Lord Alchemist, the ceremony is about to begin. Oh, I do not believe we're acquainted. Edith! These two are our comrades at arms. Dude, oh, that's right, he marries the generic villager girl. As well as my closest friends. I see, it is a pleasure to meet you. Dude, it would have been way cooler if he married Ernst. Alchemist, who's this? This is Edith. She's about to be my wife. Oh, you dog. I knew you had a spring in your step. And how do you manage to land a prize like you? A prize? Hardly. I was just a maid my lordship took a liking to. Don't be so modest. You really helped me out this whole time. Well, congratulations, Captain. But as she mentioned, you should get to that ceremony. It would do well to besmirch the Crimson Arm here. At least Queenie let you keep the name. Tactics is right. We'll be out of your hair for now. But if either of you ever need it, I'll come running, sword drawn. Take care of yourself, Alchemist. I'll keep in touch. Alchemist, it was an honor to serve with you. You also, Tactics. I'm sure you'll succeed wherever you go. Goodbye, and thank you. We did it. What a game, honestly. I like how it has all of the vanilla titles here. I'm just picking that up. A Glimpse in Time, dude. What a great chapter. And then there's Yorman the Mighty. I three-turned Yorman's chapter, guys. Dude, Ernst is low-key the best character in the game. Actually, not even low-key. High-key, the best character in the game. He's an absolute legend, dude. Ernst definitely got, like, all the best lines. Every scene he was in, he, like, stole the show. Curtis! He died in Occupation Shadow, dude. I loved Curtis. He was so bad, though. Celia is a unit that if I played the game again, I would probably try and use more. She was very good with little effort, but I just was way too committed to Girlwolf and Negu. And I didn't really use her as much as I should have. She's very good. Really good archer. Rorik's another character who I think would be interesting to try and use, but Odin just had better supports. He does have really solid growths, though. Yeah. I like how he shows up in the Gorman chapter just to, like, drop some lore. Odin was fun. Archer continued his quest from country to country. Yeah, Odin was a fun unit. I just kind of feel like his speed was really lacking. I don't know if that's just his average or if he got screwed or what, but his speed became a real problem towards the end, and it made his ability to tank really, really crappy. Andrew was great out of the gate. Really liked Andrew. Just really solid pre-promote. Like, take notes, Hackrom designers. This is how you do a good sniper pre-promote. He was really good, like, late-game powerhouse offensive unit. Mela. This game didn't give me a ton of reasons to use a thief. There weren't that many indoor chapters with chests to go after. There weren't that many things to steal. I felt like thieving was just not really... It felt very much like an afterthought in this Hackrom. Halen was fine. I mean, she's your early game healer. I probably would have used her more if I had more space. Elaine really, like, took over. Had Martel been better, I probably would have stuck with Halen. I would have used the two of them together. Aislinn's one of those unfortunate units that just gets outclassed so immediately. I really like the premise. I like her design. Female armor knights are always fun. Bows and lances, but between the weapon ranks and just, like, her crappy speed and defense relative to other characters just wasn't going to hold out. Nilda's another character I really wish I could have used. But, again, she just feels very superfluous in the grand scheme of things and doesn't really offer you any utility or have strong enough combat to justify using basically, like, non-Lord Alchemist. I think this is one of the big struggles with hacks that don't have, like, generic sword lords. Is that there's very little reason to use, like, someone else who fills a similar niche, like Infantry Lance for this case. I miss Elaine. She was a fine healer. Lonnie was pretty useful. I feel like towards the end, like most people, she just kind of fell off, but Lonnie was solid. Negu support and all. Really good for most of the game. Girlwolf, man. The Merchant Prince! Man, Girlwolf, what a disappointment. I really liked him. I really wanted him to be good, but just like his growths would not cooperate. I probably will never use him again. Beyond like the chip damage in the chapters he's forced in. What a shame. What an absolute shame. Negu actually I think was much better than Girlwolf long term. With her speed growth, but still not enough. It's a shame. Unrivaled Bow. He brought his dude, Bolslav is a family. Royal archery instructor. Became renowned. Well, he is renowned the land over, that's for sure. What a great unit. This Bolslav was incredibly blessed. Tactics, man. Tactics was not... He just didn't grow speed, and he just was too frail. At the beginning of the game, though, he was really solid. Brandon's another unit I would have liked to have tried using more. I just feel like I didn't have space for him. He would have been really nice in partnership with Celia, I think. They would have been a nice duo. Aris, man. This is the hardest kill to swallow. I really wanted to use Aris because I know she's very good. Martel. I used Martel the first time I played this game when I ended at chapter 12. And he was really solid, but his growth did not cooperate at all. And then Odin was just straight up better, and I was using Bolslav, so it made sense. Donned the cloth, dude. He became Onisim. Alright. Eliana, man, what a good bulky Pegasus Knight with sword rank. Fun unit. Really fun unit. Robert felt pretty superfluous too, because Mela has like those extra chapters to get experience. And again, thieves aren't very useful. I feel like you would have had to go really out of your way to try and make Robert work. And then there's Katarina. Dude, Boots Dancer, man? This hack showed me why Boots Dancer is great. I would do Boots Dancer all the time. It just opens up so many strats with that extra movement. It's a really good idea. Really good idea. Let's see. Sven. Sven's another unit who I was enjoying, but just like wouldn't really keep up. I probably could have made him work longer. His low luck is a bit of an issue. But it's not that terrible. But like, by the time he gets to where he needs to be, like Cynthia probably is better. I mean, you could use both, but deployments are limited. Dita as well, like, why are the female Great Knights worse than the male Great Knights? Just like have less movement and stuff. Just feels like an oversight. Again, I really just like the portrayals of all of the dark-skinned characters in this hack. Like, they just feel like they all have very, like, negative personality traits, and it's kind of odd that it's only the brown characters that are portrayed this way. Frank, man. Frank is like a diesel engine, man. Just like a chunky paladin. He really fell off at the end, but good pre-promote design. Warren, I think I could have gotten some use out of. Pretty bulky, but I didn't really feel the need to use him very much. These maps are too big, and 5 movement would have been just too slow, in my opinion. Oh, Tanya. Tanya was great. Really good unit. Oh, Foskey. Foskey. What a fun character. And Beatrice just doesn't have the stats to keep up. I feel like where Vlad would have been most useful was where everyone was really useful. So, I don't know. He also just completely disappears from the story. He has so many lines in the Wayland section of the game and then just completely goes away. It's quite strange, considering how much setup there's around his character and how much personality he has. I feel like Danik is worse than, or better than people give her credit for. Tactician, good choice. Oh my god, Chara. Female heroes are fun. Again, I don't love her portrayal. I like her palette. But when you get her, it's like, what's the incentive? She does support Bolslav, which is important to keep in mind. Abandoning her identity. Cynthia put in some work in my final chapter attempts. Again, I would also agree, like, fairly solid pre-promote design. I don't love, like, how the pre-promotes were just generally outclassing my unpromoted units, but I do like that they were immediately useful and not overbearing. That's an important distinction. August feels like the character that casuals would really like to raise. Like, if this was a vanilla game, you'd have all these people who are like, ooh, August. That's my impression of her. Dude, Erwin, a patriot. What a lad. Cool design, too, just like this chunky sage with an eye patch. I really like his character design. And then we have this man. Put in some work in the final. Athos died in a foreign land. Oh, now he's the Falcon. I love how just like the last... Dude, remember he was the Falcon. Everyone's been calling him the Falcon the whole time. He's like that guy who gives himself a nickname. Nah, dude, I'm the Falcon now. Pandan now. You guys call me the Falcon, didn't you know? And then Clara. Clara's okay. Pretty useful. She completely outclassed my other healers. I don't like that she's a game over unit, though. And then Wayland, who just like completely feels superfluous. I don't really know what to say about Wayland. Alchemist was great. Started off kind of slow, was useful but never overbearing, and at the end, dude, he just completely ramps up. It's amazing how good he gets at the end of the game. I think Alchemist's Lord design is like pretty solid. While I'm not like crazy generally about like the Lord being so centralizing of a unit, I do think in this game you kind of needed him. Tactics, the famed genius. Oh, Tactics. Oh, they never found the tactician, dude. Maybe they didn't find him because he wasn't in a league. Wow, that's the game. Oh. Okay. Cool. So that's it, guys. We've defeated Order of the Crimson Arm. I think I will... I feel like I kind of gave my thoughts on... I'll let this just run again with its glitchiness. I've kind of shared my thoughts on most of the units, but I'll share my thoughts on the overall hack now. And actually, let me do this. Let's just, let's go to the sound room. Oh, I guess we can't go to the sound room. Let's go to preps here. Yeah, let's just look at the units for a sec here. Well, yeah. So, I'll just leave Bolslav up on the screen. Because look at these stats, man. Alright, so... Order of the Crimson Arm. Overall, man, I think the hack is good. I think the hack starts out pretty strong. I think it's a really fun early game. It's an early game that I think, I know I said this before, but what I really like about the early game is that you have so many units to use. Everyone is pretty viable at the early parts of the game, and it's pretty quick and easy to rip through. Like, and what I mean by that is like, it's fun. It's like low barrier to entry. It's like a pretty like nice cruising difficulty. It's not like, you know, mindless easy, but it's also not like mind-numbingly difficult. And I really like that. It's like a good difficulty, especially for recording where you're not fully focused. And I would say like you can really split this game into like two distinct halves. It's like the first half, like the first like 13 chapters, and then like the last 13 chapters. And by and large, the first half of the game is really strong. Like, yes, there's things that could be done to improve the maps, but the general balance and usefulness of your units and just the diversity of the cast members that you can choose to play with, even if, like, you know, some choices are better than others, like, that to me offers replayability. And that was one of the reasons why I came back to Order of the Crimson Arm, is I had such a good time when I played the first arc of the story that I was like, I want to try doing this from scratch and like doing it all over again and get to the end. I felt like my enjoyment of the game really dipped in the second half. And a big part of that was just like how big the endgame maps were and just the way the difficulty spiked up very suddenly. It felt like there's no other way to put it. The game just kind of feels rushed towards the end. And I would say the game peaks, I think, at like chapter 13, which is the Lawrence chapter. You get Aras, you fight Lawrence. It's very memorable. It's very distinct. It's super high effort and cool concept that I really like. And then after that, it just kind of feels like, here's a big map, here's a bunch of enemies thrown around, like just deal with it. It's like very sandboxy in that sense, which I'm not crazy about. I think like if I were to pick like the top 50% of maps, I wager almost all of them would be the first 13 chapters. And then the bottom half would be almost all the back 15 chapters. I mean, really, like, past the Lawrence chapter, the only chapters that, like, really stood out to me as being strong were the Gorman chapter, which I might make a separate video on. It's a really good chapter. It's a really cool concept. It kind of stood out to me, not only because of just how unique it was, but also that's, like, it was in the middle of the sea of, like, forgettable, like, defeat boss field maps that I really liked. So the Gorman chapter I would put in the top half. And then also surprisingly, that interior castle map where you fight Jean and Alfonso. I thought that was a really good split up castle map. Even though it's symmetrical, pretty solid overall. Like those were the two maps like in the middle to late parts of the game that were really strong to me. The Lawrence chapter is definitely the best. Hands down, the best chapter in the hack. Not perfect, but definitely the best concept. Best execution probably as well. And like the early game is just generally like fun and pleasant to play, but like nothing's like, wow, like this is incredible. And that's good, that's fine. I really like the Fog chapter, the one where Curtis died, rest in peace. Some of the bad chapters, just like everything at the end. By the end of the game, I was so over it. And this hack is really like, it's a tale of two halves. Or it's like the first half feels like pretty like well tested, fun, offers like good degree of variance, and then the end is just kind of like most of your units are bad now and deal with this like horde of enemies, literal hordes of enemies. And it's just not how I like to play Fire Emblem. Maybe some people prefer that. I certainly don't. And it just made it really hard for me to play. Like, I know that the recordings have been going up every day, but that's just because, I mean, this is a testament, right? Like, I got so far ahead on recordings because I was having such a good time with the hack that, like, I was really struggling to put it down. Like, I wanted to keep playing and going through it. And then I got to, like, the last 5 chapters, and it took me almost, like, a month to get through them, honestly. I'm recording this on October 31st right now, and I've been, like, putting off playing the last 2 chapters for 2 weeks. Like, what does that tell you? You know? And the end game really drags. There's just not a lot of very strong chapters. The unit balance just, like, isn't great. And I think it kind of goes back to, like, the bulk, dude. The general bulk of enemies towards the end of the game is egregious. And, like, if you look at vanilla games, like, most of the enemies in vanilla games don't have this much bulk. And scaling defense is just a slippery slope of making your game slow down tremendously. And if you want to scale up bulk, just add more hit points and keep defenses relatively low, because all you're doing is slowing down the gameplay by having high defense. So just something to consider. I have more coherent thoughts on that, but I'm like a little hazy after recording for like an hour straight. As far as... But yeah, like... I will say as well with this hack, I think it gets compared to... At least I will compare it. I'm saying it, like as if like there's all this discussion happening, but it's like I feel like as I was playing it, I think it's easy to compare to Road to Ruin, because it is an FE7 ROM hack that is complete, of high quality. And both of them kind of take these different approaches to things, and there's like good things to learn from each of them. And while Road to Ruin focuses on like a smaller cast, it's shorter, and those are like two of its weaker points. Like Order of the Crimson Arm is longer, it's a little less polished, there's less visual flair and distinction, it has more characters, it has like some really unique character designs, and so it's kind of just like interesting to see like how these two different hacks like play kind of similarly, diverge. And I think they're like a good comparison point and like a good case study. I think there are elements from both you could combine to make a really solid hack. I still think OCA is probably like a top 3 or top 5 completed hack that the community's put out. I think the back half just needs a lot of work. And a lot of that would just be like changing the enemy stats up a bit. There were some narrative things in the hack too that like started to not really make sense. Like, I think the early part, like, there's a lot of good emphasis on the villains, and the villains are pretty distinct and memorable. But then I also just kind of feel like their motivations for doing things, like, aren't very clear. Or, like, is missing. Like, it just feels like there was more that was intended to be added that never got added. And we kind of just have to guess and look at Google Docs of old scripts that were put together. So, a little hazy there. I do think that, you know, the reputation that I'd heard of OCA coming into it was that, like, the writing is really simple and not really that strong, and that it has, like, good characters and is, like, a complete full-length experience. And I think the writing gets undersold a bit. Like, well, some of the narrative stuff, and I think this is a challenge with, like, a lot of older hacks in general, and just, like, any complete ROM hack project. I feel like most of them just struggle to have, like, a coherent plot line all the way throughout that, like, totally makes sense. Like, there's always some kind of ass pull that makes you kind of just be like, really? This is what's happening right now? But I think this game really gets carried a lot by just how grounded a lot of its characters are. Alchemist is far from, like, my favorite type of character, but he's certainly just, like, he's just, like, a pleasant lord to read. Ernst is great. Ernst steals the show in every scene he's in. The Ernst and Tactician scenes are probably the best in the hack. So yeah, like, so there's definitely, like, some bright spots in the narrative, and I think that this hack overall, like, doesn't do anything, like, super egregious or offensive in its writing. And that I admire, and that's worth praising and calling out as a positive. And so, like, while I think the reputation of, like, this hack is better gameplay than writing, I would argue the inverse. I think the writing is better than the gameplay. I would argue that the gameplay in the first half is better than the writing, but the writing is certainly better than the gameplay in the second half. No question. But yeah, like, overall, like, I did enjoy the hack. The end was really a struggle for me. And that's not necessarily fair for me to say in general. Or rather, not necessarily like a ding against this hack. Like, I struggle with all Fire Emblem endgames. I just really struggle to get into them or want to keep playing them. When it's just like, I know the end doesn't sound like, just let me get there already. Like, stop dragging this out. And OCA's endgame really drags out. Like, narratively, I feel like the story is kind of just like, what are we even doing at this point? It's not really very clear why we're chasing down Yormund. At least I didn't think so. There's a lot of just these big maps. The resolutions for Roswell and Rudolfo and Yormund, like, I didn't think they were that strong. Like, there's a lot of good setup, and I think there's missed potential given just, like, how prevalent they were throughout the narrative. Like, it's so unclear why Rudolfo does what he does, considering he has so many lines early on. He kills Borgriff, and then he just kind of disappears, and then you see him with, like, this Braxian woman, and it's like, oh, is this, like, his lover, and that's why he betrayed his homeland? Like, it's never clearly explained. You kind of have to, like, put the pieces together yourself, and some of that is fine, but when it's like the primary and when it's an antagonist's motivation, you need to like spell that out a little bit more so the player can understand. Because right now Rudolfo's kind of just like, he feels very like thrown into the mix. It's like he kills Borgriff, and then you see him a few more times, and then like nothing happens. And like his relationship with Roswell, there was a lot that could have been expanded on there because they were on the same side earlier in the narrative. I really like how Roswell starts out as this kind of minor antagonist and becomes much more prevalent later on. Again, there's just like so many interesting dynamics that this game sets up that it could have explored more with its villains. And I still think, of the complete ROM hacks that I've played, I think this is probably one of like the best overall villainous casts I think Jormund is a really interesting villain on paper. I think in practice, there's like questions I have, and like a full character study would probably reveal some holes. But the general premise of like my land sucks and I want to come here to like save my people, like that's fairly noble. I like Jormund. I don't understand why he did everything that he did. It was never really like laid out. It kind of leaves you up to your imagination a bit. But I think the villains in this game were pretty solid. I certainly enjoyed reading the villains a bit more than like most of the cast, besides like Ernst and Bolslav, obviously. Trying to think what else I have to say on this, man. Like, I think this hack just... There's a lot to learn from Odor of the Crimson Arm. I think... One is that bigger isn't always better. The maps just get too big at the end, and it's really difficult to get through. Big defense can make things really challenging. Like, the end game just kind of like has a TLP tier spike. And it really does. Like, the game kind of starts off feeling like Road to Ruin, and then like shifts into TLP late game. And it's just like not a great change. I think that you could have lowered the enemy stats quite significantly, or the general density, and it would have been way better and smoother to play. But I also value, as a Fire Emblem player, being able to kind of just like knife through maps like warm butter. Like, I like being able to constantly move forward every single turn, and when I'm forced to play slowly because the game doesn't let me move fast, like, that's frustrating. And so this game kind of makes you play slower and more carefully more often than I would like. And that's just me and how I like to play. It doesn't mean it's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but that's just how I like to play. Personally, I think it's bad. But it's far from, like, unfair. The only thing that I thought was unfair was really the last chapter. That's just insane. Especially with my army. The game kind of guises itself as being Iron Man friendly until the end, and at that point it's kind of like, well, you couldn't, as a blind player, you can't expect the difficulty to spike that much based on what you've been seeing. Like, the general curve is so slow throughout the game, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, end game. It's like, whoa, all these dudes with like crazy stats and silver weapons, and hardly any of my units that I've been using for the whole game can barely keep up suddenly. Like, that's a problem. That's a scaling and balancing problem. And that's something that, you know, I'm of the mind that you don't need to make your end game super difficult or challenging by spiking all the stats up. Like, end games should just feel like a continuation of the mid game, only with like more narrative stakes. And you don't need to make the maps bigger. You don't need to make the bosses significantly harder. You just need to execute on concepts well and continue to show, like, you know, like, to me, like, and this was something I tried to do, was make some of the end game maps at least feel like early game maps, but just with bigger stats. And slightly more units, but not making these like Conquer 72 turn style maps. And I think this game, just like, the maps got really big, and so few of my units were useful that I was kind of just like forced to use Algemis, use Bolslav because he was really blessed, and kind of just like clean up with everyone else. And it didn't really feel like I needed my full army anymore, and that it got to a point where most of my units were a liability. And you saw in my last run, most of my units were just like there to sponge hits and die as I like charged to Jormund to do 6 damage to him with Algemis. So, just something to consider. I do like the hack. I think the early game is really fun. I think, like, it reminds me of like Awakening in that sense, where I really enjoy the early game, but then the rest of the game I can do without. And I've played Awakening's early game, you know, through like to the Valmark probably like 5 or 6 times now over the years. And I could see myself just like doing that with OCA, just like playing to the Lawrence chapter and then quitting. And that's fine. Like, I could enjoy that. It's still a fun experience. But yeah, the late game, not that strong. The Gorman chapter is really good, but most of the late game, not a fan. Beyond that, guys, like, I still recommend playing it. I think this game, you know, it has some really creative ideas with Lawrence and Gorman, as I've said. There's some cool unit designs that you can take away, like look at Bolslav, as you've had him on the screen now for like well over 10 minutes. I think that there's good lessons to take away around like pre-promote design, where the pre-promotes like, and there's like the two elements to pre-promote design, right? There's the how do they perform relative to your cast, and how do they perform relative to the enemies? And relative to the enemies, I think the pre-promotes perform at like the right level, but relative to your cast, they're just like strictly better, and that's very FE7. And it does kind of feel bad where like you are training these units, and like even if like a unit is leveling like at average or better, that they can still be worse than the pre-promotes you get. That doesn't feel good. It's kind of like, what's the point then of training this unit? I think a lot of people would echo that sentiment. And so it's definitely a balance. And so some good lessons to take away, good lessons on bulk and how not to use it. And that's one of the things that's really important about these older hacks, is that you can learn so much about what not to do and like take like these really innovative and creative concepts that they've put together and try to make them better. And OCA, I think, gives a lot of great ideas and inspirations, and I certainly walk away from this feeling inspired to take some of these ideas and like try and like put my own spin on it. There are certain things that like I realize as a player that are frustrating, like range reinforcements. There are other things that like, you know, like, guys, this is an FE7 hack where it's not unreasonable to run 3 snipers. That's really crazy, right? That's super crazy. And there's some lessons there. Right? There's some lessons in archer design here. There's so many flyers to shoot at. Like, theMaskedRaider did a great job of making me want to use bow units. In a hack with 2 times effectiveness. That's impressive. That should be celebrated. And I think you, Hackrom designer, can go and look at this and learn something. I certainly did. But yeah. Overall, the hack is good. Early game, fantastic. I would probably, as far as like an overall experience, I certainly would I would probably put as like of completed hacks that I've played. Road to Ruin I think is still better because it's just overall a tighter experience and the end game is easier to get through. But I do think OCA overall is stronger from a gameplay standpoint than The Last Promise. And so I would probably put those as my top 3 right now of completed hacks. There are other newer completed hacks that I haven't played all the way through yet. But of like classic FE7 hacks, like I would put OCA at number 2 behind Road to Ruin. I haven't played Requiem. So I can't comment on it, but I would probably say Road to Ruin, OCA, TLP as a 1, 2, 3 overall for completed hacks. And there's great lessons to take from all of them. And I encourage you to play through this and get inspired, and you're looking for inspiration. And see what frustrates you as a player, what you enjoy, and like try and emulate that in your own stuff. And that's what we could ask for. And so theMaskedRaider, thank you again for making this. I think that this is just like, there's just a lot of cool stuff that we can take away from it. And it's just like a pretty like fun, straightforward experience overall. Using the systems of the game pretty well to achieve its goals. But I'm done rambling here. And man, I just want to say, look how bad he was, dude. I'm still so upset. He grew so poorly. It's so sad how poorly he grew. He didn't even get to A rank in Axes. Gerwolf, what happened to you, man? What happened? But anyway, guys, thank you again for watching and dealing with me throughout this 40+ part series. I picked this up on a whim, and I had a good time with it. The end was definitely a struggle for me personally, but overall, I walk away from this experience glad that I played the hack. And I feel like there's things that I can take away from this, and I'll probably make some videos on certain chapters to highlight what I think they did really well or where I would improve them. I'll probably make a video on the Gorman chapter eventually, because I think that it's a really, really cool concept, and that I wish more people would do stuff like that. So I certainly want to try doing something like that. But anyway, guys, I'm Pandan. This is Order of the Crimson Arm, a Fire Emblem 7 ROM hack by theMaskedRaider, and I'll see you next time for something else. Thank you again for watching, and be safe out there. And remember, if you love someone, tell them. Until next time.